He kicked me out for being fat, unaware I was about to inherit $30 billion and the power to crush everything he'd worked for. But that's when the real revenge began. It was the perfect life, at least that's what I thought. Tobi Lawson was everything I had ever dreamed of: successful, charming, and incredibly attractive. To the world, we were the perfect couple, powerful, glamorous, and envied by many. But no one knew the truth. No one knew the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. We met under the most unlikely of circumstances, but from the first moment, it felt like fate had brought us together. He was the kind of man who made everyone in the room stop and stare, his confidence infectious. He was everything I ever wanted: wealthy, powerful, and used to getting what he wanted. And when he turned his attention on me, I thought I had won the lottery of life. But soon enough, the cracks started showing. The compliments that once flowed freely were replaced by cold, cutting remarks. At first, it was subtle little comments about my clothes, my makeup, and my hair. He would tell me that I didn't look the way I used to, or that I should lose a few pounds. I brushed it off, thinking it was just his obsession with being perfect. Then one day it came crashing down. We were at dinner, the atmosphere pleasant but charged with a strange tension. He looked at me, his gaze piercing. "You've gained weight," he said, not a trace of kindness in his voice. "This isn't the woman I fell in love with." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. What was he saying? "What do you mean?" I stammered, my stomach sinking. "You've changed," he continued, his words slicing through the air. "You're just getting bigger. You need to get a grip on yourself, or this isn't going to work." I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. The man who once showered me with affection was now criticizing my body, something I had never expected from him. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, his comments became sharper, more frequent. "You really need to hit the gym," he'd say as I walked into a room, or, "Are you sure you want that dessert?" When we were at a restaurant, I began to doubt myself. I hadn't been as slim as when we first met, but I was healthy. And yet, every day it seemed like I was being judged for not being perfect. And then, it happened. One evening, after we had come home from a party, Tobi's demeanor changed completely. "You need to leave," he said, his voice cold and final. I blinked in confusion, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. "What?" I whispered. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "You're not the woman I want. You've let yourself go, and I can't keep living this way." I stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. The man I had once believed was my soulmate was now throwing me out of his life, all because of my weight. But what he didn't know was that I had a secret so big it could bring his world crumbling down. I wasn't just some ordinary woman. I wasn't some trophy to be discarded when I didn't meet his standards. Tobi had no idea that I was about to inherit a fortune worth $30 billion. That's right, billion with a B. And that wasn't all. Along with that mind-blowing inheritance, I owned estates all over the world. Property in Paris, London, New York, and even Africa. Tobi had no idea that I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was a woman with the power to destroy everything he had built. I had the money to crush him, the resources to erase him from existence if I so wished. But I wasn't planning on doing that, not yet anyway. If you have watched this story to this point, please tell us where you are watching from, leave your comments, like and share this story. The days that followed felt like a blur. I packed my things and left the mansion, my heart a mixture of anger and disbelief. But as I stepped out of the front door, the weight of the truth began to settle in. Tobi had just made the biggest mistake of his life. But what he didn't know was that he had just triggered something far more powerful than he could ever have imagined. I wasn't just some woman he could dismiss. I had the ability to walk away, to take everything, to make him regret ever crossing me. And I was about to. This version ups the ante right from the start, giving a powerful hook that makes viewers or readers immediately want to know more. The reveal of the inheritance and estates shifts the power dynamics and sets the stage for the upcoming revenge and drama. Does this work for you? I didn't know where to go after I left Tobi's mansion. I had no family to fall back on, no friends who could truly understand what I was going through. But one thing was clear: I couldn't go back to that life. Tobi had thrown me out, humiliated me, and crushed my spirit, all with a single sentence. "You've let yourself go." The words echoed in my mind as I stood outside the gates of the mansion, staring into the empty night. But what Tobi didn't know was that I had something more powerful than his cruel words. I had power, real power. The kind of power that could make or break anyone, even someone like him. As I stood there, trying to process everything that had just happened, I couldn't shake the feeling of bitterness that began to rise in me. For the first time in a long while, I truly understood my worth. Tobi had never known the real me, the one with the billions, the one with the estates, the one who didn't need anyone to define her. He had only seen a woman who loved him unconditionally. But now, he would understand what happens when you make an enemy out of someone like me. I made my way to a small, quiet apartment I had rented months earlier, when I first realized how dangerous it could be to rely on anyone. Tobi had never known about it, and I had kept it hidden just in case. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. I could breathe in that space, knowing that no one could take it from me. The apartment was a reflection of my new life. A life where I would no longer be controlled by someone else's idea of what I should be. But as I sat on the couch, the weight of the situation sank in. I had just walked away from the man I thought I'd marry, from the life I thought I'd have. Was I really prepared for the power that was now at my fingertips? I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out. For the next few days I kept to myself, staying out of the public eye. The last thing I needed was the media catching wind of my breakup with Tobi. They'd be all over it, dissecting every moment, every word. But I wasn't worried about that. I had a bigger plan, one that involved something Tobi could never imagine, revenge, and not the petty kind. I was going to take back control of my life, and I was going to do it in a way that would make him regret ever throwing me away. I knew I had the inheritance waiting for me, $30 billion and estates spread across the globe. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about everything I could do with it. I could buy out Tobi's company, take control of his business, and make him watch as everything he'd worked for slipped through his fingers. But that wasn't my plan, at least not yet. I had to think bigger. I made the call the following week, one that would change everything. The lawyer handling my inheritance had been trying to reach me for months, but I'd never given him much attention. After all, I had been too wrapped up in my relationship with Tobi to focus on the one thing that truly belonged to me. But now it was time to take control. The lawyer's voice crackled through the phone, sounding formal but eager. "Miss Amara, it's good to hear from you. I've been trying to reach you regarding the details of your inheritance. I've managed to gather all the documents and arrange everything for your signature. You are now the rightful heir to the estates and the funds." The gravity of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. The man who had just tossed me aside for something as trivial as my weight had no idea what was coming for him. I was about to enter a world of power, a world where he had no place. "Thank you," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I had to sound calm, cool, collected. "I'll be there to sign the papers soon. Please make sure everything is in order. I don't want any delays." After the call, I sat in silence, contemplating the decision I had just made. Tobi thought he knew who I was, but he had no idea. He didn't know that I could change everything in an instant. All it would take was one phone call, one signature, and I would own more than he could ever dream of. But I wasn't going to rush into it. I had to be smart, strategic. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about making sure that Tobi would never be able to hurt me again. I had to bide my time, wait for the perfect moment. He wouldn't even see me coming. A week later, I finally signed the documents. With the stroke of a pen, my life changed. But it wasn't just about the money. It was the realization that I had power, real power. Power that Tobi would never be able to take away from me. I knew what I had to do next. I didn't want to destroy him. Not yet. But I wasn't going to let him walk away from me unscathed. The revenge I had planned wasn't going to be about money or property. It was going to be about showing him just how little he really knew me. I began with a few subtle moves. I made sure to keep a low profile while quietly buying shares in his company, the one he had built from the ground up. Tobi had always prided himself on his success, thinking no one could touch him. But I knew the cracks in his empire, the ones he never saw coming. One evening, a few weeks after I signed the papers, I received a call from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat. It was him, Tobi. "Amara?" His voice came through the phone, tight and strained. "I've been thinking about everything that happened. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kicked you out. Can we talk? I want to fix things. I laughed, a cold, humorless laugh that startled even me. Fix things? I repeated. After everything you said to me, you want to fix things? I'm not the same woman you threw out, Tobi. I'm not the woman you thought I was. I have more than you'll ever have, and I'm not interested in being your consolation prize. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When he finally spoke, his voice was shaking. What do you mean? I smiled, a wicked smile that I couldn't hide. You'll find out soon enough. The next few days were filled with tense anticipation. Tobi didn't know it yet, but his world was about to fall apart. He had no idea that I was already pulling the strings, playing the game he never thought I'd be able to play. The woman he kicked out for being too fat was about to show him just how powerful she could be. The time for revenge had come, and I was ready. The days dragged on as I continued my quiet takeover of Tobi's world. With every move I made, I felt the power growing, building, until it became something I could no longer ignore. He still didn't know what was coming for him. Every time he called, apologized, or showed up at my apartment, I remained calm, knowing that in the end, I would be the one standing tall. I had no intention of forgiving him. What he had done to me was unforgivable. But I didn't want him to see me as just a woman he could cast aside. I wanted him to understand that I was more than what he thought. I was far more than his idea of a woman's worth. The plan was set into motion, and I was watching it unfold perfectly. I had silently taken control of key parts of his company, using the shares I had accumulated over the last few weeks. Tobi had no clue that every decision, every move he made, was being influenced by me. He had thought that by dismissing me he could maintain his life, his power, and his empire. But he couldn't have been more wrong. One morning I received an email from my lawyer, confirming that my first official act as the new owner of a portion of his company was about to go through. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I was about to take everything he loved, everything he built, and turn it all upside down. But there was a part of me that couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. The woman who had been cast aside for being fat was now the woman in control. And that control was intoxicating. It was a few days after that email that I got the call. It was from Tobi again. Amara, can we meet? I need to talk to you. His voice was more desperate than I had ever heard it. There was no arrogance now, no command in his tone. There was only fear. I smiled to myself as I held the phone in my hand. I already knew what was coming, and I wasn't about to make it easy for him. But I agreed to meet, wanting to face him one last time, to see the look on his face when he realized how much power I held in my hands. We met at a quiet cafe in the city, far from the prying eyes of the press. Tobi looked like a man who had been running on empty for days. His usual sharp suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and his eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. As I walked in, he looked up and his face softened, a brief flicker of hope in his eyes. But that hope quickly died when he saw the cool, confident look on my face. I wasn't the woman he had discarded anymore. I was something much stronger. I've been thinking about everything, he said as I sat across from him. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I've tried to fix it, Amara. But I can't seem to make things right. He paused, clearly searching for the right words. I was wrong to judge you. You're not who I thought you were. Please let me make it up to you. We can fix this. I studied him for a moment, my expression unreadable. Part of me almost wanted to laugh at how desperate he was. This was the same man who had kicked me out for being overweight, who had told me I wasn't good enough, and now he was begging me for a second chance. But I didn't laugh. Instead, I spoke softly, my voice dripping with calm confidence. Tobi, do you honestly think I'm interested in your apologies? After everything you've done to me? His face faltered for a second, but he quickly recovered. I know I hurt you, Amara. I was blind. I can see now that you were never just the woman I wanted, but the woman I needed. Please, I want us to fix this. I leaned back in my chair, my mind whirling. Part of me was tempted to let him suffer, to make him truly feel the pain he had caused. But there was no need for more drama. I had already won, and it was time for him to see the truth. Do you remember what you said to me the day you kicked me out? I asked, my voice steady. You told me I wasn't good enough, that I had let myself go, that I was too fat for you. You didn't just throw me out, Tobi, you shattered my self-worth. But what you don't know, what you never knew, is that I wasn't just some ordinary woman you could throw away. His eyes widened, confusion beginning to take over his face. What do you mean? What are you talking about? I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment I had been waiting for. I've been hiding something from you. Something you never even thought to ask about. I own more than you can imagine. And now, I'm going to take control of everything. Tobi blinked, unable to process what I was saying. What are you talking about? He repeated, his voice shaking now. I inherited $30 billion, Tobi. And along with that inheritance, I own estates across the world, Paris, New York, London, Africa. Everything you thought you knew about me, everything you dismissed, was a lie. I could have destroyed you 1,000 times over, but instead I've been playing the game my way. And now I'm done. For a long moment, Tobi didn't say anything. His mouth opened and closed as he tried to find the words to respond. But he couldn't. How could he? Everything he thought he knew had just been obliterated in front of him. He had no power, no control, and no way of getting it back. Finally, he looked down, his shoulders sagging in defeat. I don't know what to say. Good, I replied, standing up. Because there's nothing left to say. As I turned to leave, I couldn't help but feel a sense of finality. Tobi had broken me once, but I had rebuilt myself stronger than ever. Now, he would be the one to learn a hard lesson that no one has the power to define you but yourself. I walked out of the cafe, a wave of satisfaction sweeping over me. The tables had turned. I had taken back my life, my power, and my dignity. And Tobi, for the first time, would understand just how badly he had misjudged me. The days that followed were filled with the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had finally found my own path. I didn't need Tobi or anyone else to define who I was. I had the strength, the resources, and the freedom to build my own future. And as for Tobi, he would live with the consequences of his actions for the rest of his life. The empire he had worked so hard to build would crumble, not because of me but because he had underestimated the woman he thought he could walk away from. The story had come full circle. The woman who had been cast aside for being too fat had become the woman in control. And Tobi, who once had it all, would now be left with nothing. What do you think of Amara's final decision? Was it the right choice? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.